Myths?
Myths.
MYTTS?
M-Y-T-H-S.
Okay. Last week I read this article in the Wall Street Journal, and when I read it I said, you've got to hear this. You've just got to hear what's in this article. It was written by Alan Ripp, a person I had never heard of, but it turns out he's famous in a peculiar way. It seems, according to him, that 40 years ago he was working in a publishing business, and he met a man who was in the process of writing a book about running. And he himself was a runner, so that man asked him what he thought about running. It turns out the person asking him was James Fix, we may know, who wrote one of the most famous running books called The Complete Book of Running. And in 1977, when the book was published, this man, Alan Ripp, went to the book, looked through it, and saw that he was quoted. What he had said to James Fix was in the book. And he had said, running is the greatest thing that ever happened to me. It's the focus of my daily routine, the source of everything. It gives my life a sense of rhythm. He was quoted by James Fix. He found out that over the 40 years that quote of his has shown up all over the place. He said it shows up in blogs, track club sites, it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, with his name attached. He says it's as if he was the aerobic muse, you know, the inspiration for runners. And it's lived on for 40 years as the thing runners believe. He says he's even seen an actress use it as an inspirational quote. Athlete's Foot, that's the company that sells shoes, use it in Aruba to get people to buy shoes. Everywhere he goes, he sees this quote live on. 40 years. He said, I hate to break it to my followers, but 40 years later, I probably need to revise my grandiose sentiments. He would say now, 40 years after that quote, which still lives on, and you could read today as inspiration if you're a runner, he would say, running is fine until you can no longer squat properly to lace your shoes. It made an already compulsive person, meaning him, inflexible in his routine and was the source of stress fractures, knee surgeries, and immovable joints. It gave my life a sense of mania, craziness, right? So what he's saying is 40 years of his own personal experience says, I wouldn't say that again. But that quote lives on as inspiration to others. It also kind of falls into the category of things your mother would have told you that would happen, right? You keep running, you're going to have problems with your feet and your legs, and you're going to have problems. And it got me to thinking, and maybe it's getting you to thinking, what are the things like that are inspirational quotes, but that people would experience will tell you, no, that's not the way it really is. Right? Sayings, inspirational sayings. The one that first came to my mind was, you can be anything you want. And people tell you that all the time. Have you ever asked somebody who tried to be anything what they want, how it turned out? Nobody does that, right? But here's another one. That showed up this week. And this weekend I went to a marriage ceremony. People getting married, and they went through the whole, you know, of the marriage ceremony. You know, the whole sayings and everything, until death do you part. And I was thinking, why don't you ask your mother how this turns out? How do marriages really turn out? You go to the ceremony, they say one thing, but the reality is sometimes very good, other times not so good. In the middle there's a lot of work. It's not so simple as it's the focus of your daily routine, the source of everything. And it gets back to this idea of why do people keep repeating these things? Have you ever thought about that? Why do they say the same things over and over again? Do you know why? Because they want to believe they're true. Runners want to believe that running is about, gives my life a sense of rhythm. They don't want to believe it ruins my knees and wrecks my hips and destroys my life and makes me a maniac. Right? Why do people get married? Good question. Huh?
They got their blinders on.
They want to believe something instead of, I mean, you can get married, but ask your mother what to do, or your father, right? There's experience. So I guess to kind of wrap up on this thing, it got me to thinking about the difference between what is said and what experience tells you the reality is. What actually turns out to be the case? And then how are you supposed to know what to do? Perhaps it's as simple as ask somebody who's done what you want to do before you jump in and believe some phrase. That's about all I could think of. And when I hear the feedback from today's evaluation, I'll change this for next week's speech.
I feel like everything everyone's told me is a sham now.
Yeah.